Try to fix that. Did you see the restaurant that I went to, the Irish restaurant?
Ah, well, no, Jessica. It is Jessica. I
Yeah.
forget these things.
Okay,
Well,
you're recording now.
Jessica, this is an April update on the 10th or 11th or some downtime. What's the date today? Doesn't matter. Mid April.
It
How
is
are
April
you?
12th,
12th of April.
2021. Yep.
Well, something that's happened on the internet from this point of view is 10 years ago when I got fired from Sky Television, after almost 21 years, I uncovered some letters which I'd had and from a very important lady who organized a very important conference because I decided to put up the Bill Cooper video, which was taken at the Global Deception Conference of 1993. I've said it's 1991, it's 1993. That was a really big, serious conference. David Icke and stuff was still doing little, small, little rooms and stuff like that. But Mary had really done her homework, and she was getting some really incredibly hard data from people, and in terms of this country, knew Anthony J. Hilda and Jordan Maxwell and people like that, all these really big people who in 1983, they'd only been on the scene, I think, sort of late 80s. But I know Anthony J. Hilda had been doing stuff on LPs, on records, because what people don't understand is the easiest way to distribute recordings wasn't making cassette tapes and sending them out to people. A lot of people did do that. A lot of people just stamped two or 3,000 albums, and you just went boom, 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 stamp them out, and away you go, and you post them. And that was the way of sending recordings around places. So Anthony J. Hilda did a lot of those, and then the era of VHS tape and all that sort of came out, and 1988, 89, of course, things were moving on to CDs and things by then, but that was how things were done. But the point is that Mary organized this Global Deception Conference in the Wembley Arena, which is it's the complex of, it's got a huge soccer ground, and then where they had and they also had other big lecture theaters, take 4,000 people or whatever it is. Some of them would take 6,000 or 7,000. Anyway, she booked one to handle 4,000, and I think she got about 400 people turning up in this beautiful, vast, hall, which cost her a shirt, and I think it cost her her house ultimately with her
Wow.
partner. And that was heavy duty intel stuff. That was
Yeah.
serious. That reached the mainstream newspapers at the time. But the bottom line is it was screwed up in the recording. And I brought my camera, and she says, "No, you're not allowed to bring that. No, you're not allowed to bring that, Miles." Meanwhile, half a dozen people are walking in with their cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But the main contractor screwed up the sound going into the camera for the master record because I think it was, it wasn't incompetence, it was deliberate. So the audio was massively distorted. So I was asked by Mary. She came cap in hand to my place, handed me a whole pile of tapes, and basically said, like, could you try and make something out of this? Now, I didn't have any kind of an editing suite. I had three very good VHS things with jog, shuttle edit things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very expensive things, but still not the sort of thing you can try to lip sync stuff accurately on a timeline, because in 1993, who the hell had a computer who could do that? I mean, we're dealing with 386s for Christ's sake then. 486s just, in other way, it just wasn't going to happen. So I made the edit, and all these years later, in 2009 or late 2009, I dug up the tape and loaded it onto my YouTube channel and gave her due credit on all this sort of stuff, because it was her conference, said how wonderful she was. But since then, Stella Remington, who was the head of MI5 in the midterm way back in the 90s and things, they went after her, and things happened. And even the Queen Mother was involved with originally saying, yes, go ahead with the conference. and all sorts of stuff like that was going on. And remember, this is before David Icke is doing whatever, anything.
Right, right. Yeah, it was
And
definitely before then.
this is really groundbreaking stuff, especially in the UK. Absolutely just unbelievable. And anyway, I've got Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper, when he came, had the nasal problem when
Yeah.
they do your adenoids.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking with a really serious bunged up thing. And that's targeting. We know now. They screw up with the air conditioning and do other things. So he did a really great presentation. Robert Maxwell was there. I think Robert Strecker from the Strecker Memorandum, which is all about HIV and AIDS and how it was specified,
Yeah.
ordered
Yeah.
up and specified in the 1960s by the elite at the UN. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going way back in the history and way
20,
back in the
20
60s.
years ahead. Yeah, that they had these plans, just like they
And
did
that
with
is,
the
of course, something we
pandemic.
can't talk about here because we
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
banned, because we have a free press in this country, and therefore they're censoring us everywhere. Fuck the
Yeah.
bastards.
I know.
Anyway, I got these two letters from Mary with a whole lot of stuff in it that I just read out in a blog where my name's in there, or me as the you person, and there's Mrs. Thatcher, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all these poor sort of names, and I'm in there in the same paragraph,
Wow.
you know.
Yeah.
But also it said, don't know why you haven't been fired from Sky because of your reckless opinions and things, because I was doing bases, way back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I got up to bases 8 or 9 or something, and interviewed people like John Irwin and James Casbolt in bases 4. So it was in the, and then, but in it, it said, which is very significant. Well, it was all very significant. Was she explained how Special Branch threw out MI19 from Hounslow Police Station, and who had been attacking me with pulsed visual imagery weapons or something like that. It's in. I read it out on this Fast Blast, but that's in one simple paragraph. The existence of MI19 used to target people, and they were in a local police station, just my local cop shop where I live in West London. I used to live in West London, but Special Branch threw them out. So the existence of MI19 involving targeting people with TI weapons, that's it in black and white in a letter sent to me in 2010, around about there was October, September and October. And at that time, I was then hauled up to be fired at Sky, which then I finally got fired because I found out a lot of stuff about the Chinese and how they were infiltrating Sky and a whole level of management. And ultimately, we
Right.
found that the key manager of my department was being run by Greys, really bad sons of bitches with a really thick, well, almost like a head like the, not the Vulcans, but the other ones.
Kind of like a heart,
Like,
heart-shaped head when it
yeah,
came,
no,
kind of
with a
comes out of
very
a high
thick ridge
forehead.
down the middle, with
Yeah, that's the heart shape. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
and then the thick ridge down the middle,
Uh-huh.
and they were in control of my head of senior management of our
Yeah.
department. Now, I've said all this before.
I think they're called the Arbonne. These are the Arbonne.
Ah,
When it's a heart-shaped head, they have the ridge that goes down, so it almost looks like a heart. It bulbs out, like the two lobes are separated.
right.
Is that the one?
I don't know. The person who traced that for me explained the detail of the division in the brain with a thick.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The two brains are actually separate.
Those are the ones that plot and plan. They have created some of these really insane rulers. They've trained them, and they've done a lot of things, regarding wars and some of these like crazy tyrannical rulers. Yeah.
Well, they were infiltrating Murdoch's Sky Empire
Mm-hmm.
with a
Of course,
view to
'cause
getting in
media.
at Fox in America. and the
They
Chinese were
they
in
need the
there
media.
doing it
Yeah.
with them,
Yeah,
because
they
this
need the media.
level of management was operated originally at Sky's Star TV operation, Murdoch's Star TV operation in Hong Kong, which was transmitting obviously with compliance with the Chinese to China. And of course, at that time, Murdoch had a very nice Chinese wife who was a business lady, very top level businesswoman. And then they threw in Tony Blair on this. And within a month of me leaving Sky, there was a whole row happened in Parliament to really attack Murdoch and Sky, the whole thing. And that's when Murdoch was actually physically attacked by somebody in Parliament during one of the committees that they were meeting. And of course, his wife protected him from this attack. And I think that was all set up so it could symbolically show that China and his wife, his honorable wife, was defending her honorable husband, and honor was maintained, while then that whole thing fell apart. And a whole lot of other things happened, Sky
Yeah.
Sports and a whole lot of other things happened. And
So by the
ultimately, Sky
disclosure,
is now owned
yeah,
by Comcast,
right.
and Comcast runs NBC, and that only happened a couple of years ago. It took like 4 or 5 years for Sky to finally get sold. But that's when the automatic protection mechanism, which protected Sky, was released, and I went on to do this, the Ammach project. I'm going to stand up for this one,
Stand up. Let's see it.
and there. And I think there's only 2 of these. I have this one.
Uh-huh.
And the beautiful Joanne. And I call her the beautiful Joanne because, in all due credit, she is beautiful. And we set this thing up. She came up with the name, did a lot of work on it, a lot of work, ran it effectively. It was her baby effectively after that. With 2 other guys, Dave Hodrian of the Birmingham UFO group. And he ran a fantastic, I think he still does, run a brilliant UFO group in Birmingham. And a lot of the people who came forward to be helped by the Ammach project were sort of sourced from him. So my task was to make sure it got recorded properly. And I converted my front room into a TV studio. And then we ended up doing a TV show called Confessions of an Alien Abductee, which went out on the 4th major network in the UK called Channel 4. And that took about 18 months to 2 years to actually come to get to air. We all worked very hard on that. A lot of key people were in on it. Simon Parks, Marie Kayali, Christine Sabrina Piper, I think it is. Brilliant woman who had immense abilities to do remote viewing and hearing, and was actually in a craft which was involved in a major incident over Sheffield. It possibly was the Sheffield incident, but may not have been. But she was in this craft, and the US were in Sheffield at the time, that area, the centre of England, trying to shoot this thing down. So the ET said, hey, Sabrina, Chantel, we better dump you off before you get into trouble. So she was teleported right beside the US military, who were using these energy weapons to attack this UFO. And she was sort of standing there, and the Americans told her to get the hell out of here, But they didn't realize she'd come from the bloody thing that they were looking at.
Right.
So all that happened, and then the Marie Kayali thing, which has led to tears, a lot of tragedy, and a lot of terrible and some very good things, but a lot of very bad things. And the other one was Simon Parks, Chantel, Marie, and I think there was somebody else. Anyway, that's just been released onto YouTube on the 27th of January. And between the 27th of January and about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it had over 340,000 views. And that was a big hit for Channel 4, but it was also a major betrayal of everybody involved. because we thought we were dealing with with a serious documentary, and they made it into a comedy documentary, and ultimately it led to the destruction of this basically plummeted after it was so ridiculous and humiliating for everybody. It just
So
died a
so
death
they
after.
they they discredited all of the information that you had
Yeah.
compiled and then made a mockery of it.
Well,
But that's
some of the people involved in the program had a look at it. If you took the comedy music off and the comedy type attitude of the commentator, which was said in sycophantic little sarky sort of voiceovers, it could have passed off as a very serious and very good documentary.
right, absolutely. Yeah. But that's their job, is to discredit any information that is revealing what's going on. And so we need to, you know, you've been down the long road. You actually started working on this stuff when it wasn't very popular and kind of broke through, and was able to disclose certain things, which kind of has opened up the door for like when I entered, which is much later. And that's really important. You laid the groundwork, and the ones that lay the groundwork usually, you know, have to face a lot of, difficulties and
Well, I mean, I think the idea was that I'd never work in television again. And the bottom line is that with the TV industry now, it is very few people working in the TV industry right now. But that's 10
I want
years
to.
ago. This is all 10
Yeah,
years ago, 2010,
I'd like to tell you
2011,
something.
2011.
I'd like to tell you something really important. The reason why I knew who those Arbonne were, that those ETs, is because I have a memory recall. It was so vivid. It was a recognition. I saw myself in a holding cell in water, and laying there. There's something plugged into the top of my head, and those aliens came right up to me, and they stood by it, and it was almost like, being in this compartment. I could hear all these people screaming throughout. It was on a ship. It was all stainless steel. I remember seeing a red button in particular, and I was moving. I was in levitating in like water or something, maybe viscous, or just but I can move around in it. And I was laying there, and my eyes were open, and one of them walked over to me, and the other one stood next to him, and they said, "This one's a problem. She's going to remember." And someone screamed, and then they left. I pulled the thing out of the top of my head. I hit something, and then the thing opened up, and I dropped down into the ocean. And when I dropped down to the ocean, I looked back up, and I could see this thing was like on a tripod, or some kind of spacecraft, but it was dematerialized. You couldn't see it, but then it was starting to materialize because I hit something, I broke something, and all these people started to come out, and they were in the water, and the water was, it was an ocean, but it was like right by the shore, and so we landed in the water. And I remember getting up and walking out, and there were some other beings, ETs or some sort, that came to greet me, but they looked like, I don't know, they were benevolent. They seemed nice, but it was so bizarre. But the information that I got while I was on that craft was that they were the ones that worked on Hitler, Mussolini, all of the primary rulers that caused a lot of problems, and they did torture, and this whole torture thing that would create these personalities, fractured personalities, that would, go out and further create wars and destruction and so forth. And I don't know what I was doing there, but I'll never forget them. And people laugh at them because then they took those type of ETs, put them on a comedy show, and so they said, "Oh, those are the buttheads or whatever." And I said, "Those guys right there," I said, "you think that they're absolutely nothing." I said, "But they're vicious. They are so psychologically cruel that you can't even fathom. Humans don't think like that."
Well, most humans, I mean, I was just thinking about something there. That's really heavy duty stuff.
It was. It was. I could describe the interior of the spacecraft. I mean, it wasn't really large. It was almost like a rocket, and then it had the three legs, and but that's the way it looked on the outside. Remember, a lot of these spaces, they look small, but when you get in there, they're a lot larger.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that.
Well, Doctor Who's TARDIS, and I had some kind of contact or something which said that the TARDIS is a real thing, but it's not called a TARDIS, but the initials stand for something else. I think in Doctor Who it's time and relative dimensions in space.
Right.
But the important thing is that Terry Nation was the writer of a lot of the stuff for Doctor Who in the early 60s. But he, there was another major earlier British thing, Doctor, I've just forgotten it again. It's a major science fiction series that came out of Britain in the 1950s. Doctor somebody bloody or other. And a lot of the stories which were on those black and white, these were live acted for television and also filmed for TV in 1956, 57. So that was stuff that was being acted in the very early days of real British television. Before ITV even existed. I think independent television didn't come on in as commercial TV didn't happen in Britain until about 1957 or 59. And that maybe came on with maybe two stations, one for London and one for the Midlands, I think. I mean, ITV really was. I mean, BBC Britain was so behind in broadcasting, so far behind in broadcasting. Oh hell! I wish I could remember the bloody name of this bloody TV series. It's third or fourth time I've tried to mention it. It's major British TV science.
Oh,
The only science fiction thing you had on British television in the 1950s. So whatever the hell that is.
science fiction 1950s in British.
British film. I said I don't have a proper keyboard. I don't want to.
No, I can look it up. The other one I was looking at is Philip K. Dick
It's Doctor
recently.
bloody or just one name. Fucking hell. Anyway, it came back 2 or 3 series and changed from BBC to ITV, and oh hell, Quatermass. If I do enough
Quatermass?
swearing, I can remember things. It was Quatermass, and Quatermass was putting forward some really heavy, not Quartermass, but Quatermass was putting forward some very advanced science fiction stuff, and there's a good few British crappy B movies, one of which involved a country manor, and the locals were in the pub, and something would happen, the lights would dim, and they'd go back, they'd get an extra 15 minutes of time because they were playing with some kind of dimensional technology in a country house in the English countryside. And that's in the 1950s. So that is whistleblowing. So if you look at some of this early stuff on good old B movies, in the same way, if you look at Buck Rogers in the 22nd century, that was 1939.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most expensive films made to date in black and white, for Christ's sake. It was just before color. I think they had a couple of Gone with the Wind was 1940. That was color. That was very early color. You had anyway. The point is, everything in Buck Rogers in the 22nd century, in the original 1939 film, with Buster Crabbe starring as Buck Rogers, because he also starred as the original.
Was he Tarzan too?
No, he did maybe Tarzan, but he did the other science fiction one, the earlier one before that with the Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon, yeah.
So he was Flash Gordon, and that's before we knew about atmospheres, but maybe not. The distance between planets and things, the way they were doing, there's a lot of concepts there that shouldn't be thrown out, and they were using some kind of thing called a televisor, which wasn't television, but they were actually tuning something in to actually see directly some kind of remote dimensional thing, not like a crystal ball, but they were the stuff there in those early science fiction things. But the point about Buster Crabbe and Buck Rogers is you're dealing with beam me up technology, ray guns,
Mm-hmm. Right.
underground tunnels,
Yeah.
in the earth, underground bases. And that's all. I mean, all Star Trek basically was in the 60s was a remake of Buck Rogers from 1939. The difference is they used color, and they were using some of the same sort of stuff on the set as they used in the 1950s. And that was Captain Pike. And of course, that episode was a pilot. And then we brought in, and Spock was in there from the word go. But Spock was being used to focus everybody who watched Star Trek was focusing their image and energy onto Spock, and that was feeding the Israeli psychic warfare program. So that is all part of why the 100th monkey effect, which is what Tim Rifat's now using to attack the elite. A lot of these things are using the TikTok death and TikTok curse, I think, videos where people are sending in videos and putting it on TikTok death and TikTok curse, I think, with certain specific ideals in mind, using psychic warfare, celestial weapons to attack in the domain that they've been attacking us. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek, the Star Wars, and there's a shocking. I've just uploaded a video, or I've just uploaded a breaking news from Duncan, and he's referring to a video on this guy called Nas,
Yes. Yeah.
and
He's the
that
one
has
that had
him
the
being humped
satanic. Yeah.
by Satan
Yeah.
with
And
the
he
red
has
and the
blood
black.
in the blood in his shoes and the sneakers, and he was selling them.
Yes.
And yeah, he's definitely promoting a satanic
But that was
profile.
the death of Lucifer, and that's been handed over. Lucifer's powers, Lucifer has run its course, and now Tim Rifat is meant to possess that energy, and he's going to use it to destroy the elite and these.
Lucifer was an angel, but the satanic stuff is other.
It's an
There's more
officer,
than
it's a
one.
rank.
There's more than one, by the way. There's satanic entities that are, doing different things. They're showing up in different forms. But Lucifer was an angel. But
Well,
and
the
he so
angels
yeah.
are not all happy slappy.
No, some of them got really bad. I've had some real confrontations with them, and they've made some decisions, and some of the ones that people think are good are not necessarily playing on the good
But
side,
explain where
behind the
that all
scenes.
comes from your perspective.
Um,
The
I,
Elohim.
I, I have memories of that as well. I have memories. And I could talk about it.
Go
I
ahead,
remember.
talk. I've done
I
enough
remember
talking.
being in this big hall. It almost felt like it was in a cave. It was huge, and it was very echoey. And there was one being that was seated on a chair, and he was saying there is a problem. And I'm not saying that's God. It could have been God, or it could not have been God, but it was someone in leadership over the other angels. And they said there's been a problem. There's something has contaminated our people. You have to choose today which side you're going to be on. And in my mind, I said, I will not turn on my brothers. And I was looking straight ahead. When I said that in my mind, I turned to the right. Half the group turned and looked at me, and their eyes were red. And I saw that there was some kind of a contamination. And then the scene cut. Pretty much I don't remember what happened. And then I see myself sitting in a smaller room, and they said, none of you here took a side. You both chose to be neutral. All of you chose to be neutral. And then they said, you will be hated by both groups. And I said, great. That's exactly how my life has been. I've had one group of angels hating me and another group of angels hating me, and I've had problems because I didn't choose either side of them, and now they're calming down. But um, I have a memory of being there, and that's why I call my middle name's Ariel. That was my name.
And it's spelled in an odd way. It's not spelled in an English way as I before E or what? How do you spell it?
Arael with an AEL. And when I saw the Book of Enoch, I said, "Yeah," and I recognized all of it, and I said, "This is exactly how it played out." And I still have been in battles, and I've seen that there's a lot of the problems we have been the angels are involved, the ones that want to be contrary.
Yeah,
They
because
are they are there. I'll catch them there.
in the church at Avebury, you have black-winged angels who are keeping Christ in a hell space of some kind. There are a series of angels
Yeah.
in different
Hmm.
positions in the way they are pointing their fingers and stuff. And the colors, how the colors invert between one angel one way and the other angel. It's full of symbolism, but it's there in AP Church if you can get access to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. I might have even been there. I've been to Avery, and I don't know if I've been to that church. It's possible. I have to take a look at it. But
Well, is there any chance of you coming over to
yeah,
the UK without having
yeah,
to
I'd love
spend
to.
6 months in jail?
Yeah,
Or
as long as
or
they don't plan on putting a needle in me, and then I'll be all set. Because I don't want to I don't want to have to be able to travel and have any restrictions or requirements to travel.
well, I think based on the material, Dr. Richard Fleming's released another PDF on this for discussion with very high level doctors and so forth in this medical subject involving the relationship we have with Maxine and her relatives, rather than saying anything else we would get banned for. And
Mm,
so I shouldn't be saying this at all because it might educate the AI.
yeah, yep.
So,
You talking
what
about the
about
one that's
conferences
on?
and
Yeah.
things going on in the United States? Bob Brown's international conference, is that going to happen, or is UFOCon, is that as a real conference?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in touch with anyone. I haven't actually done any public presentations since I've been public in 2015, and I just have not done anything. I stepped away. I'm doing a lot of work. But there will come a time that I'll come out and meet and greet with people because I think people are really they're the ones that are helping make the changes here. And I'm really, really proud of some of these people.
I
They're
mean,
they're in the
we
background.
hear Florida and
Yep.
Texas. What about other states?
Um. Unfortunately, the cabal has a good stronghold on the state that I'm from, but Massachusetts. But yeah, Florida's trying to hold their ground and say that we're not budging. We're going to, you know, exercise our rights. Texas wants to secede, but they always have.
Right.
And California just seems to be, constantly the target of initiating really bad um, laws and corruption into the country. I mean, it just seems to be a um, uh, I don't know how can I say a sinkhole or it's just bleeding. You know what I mean? So
So,
it just
I mean, from a British perspective, or from over here, a lot of us were hanging on to Charlie Ward and Simon Parkes and Sasha
yeah,
Stone and is it Robert David Steele, and he ended up saying some things on Kerry Cassidy's channel. So whatever he said caused her to lose her channel.
right.
So she's off YouTube and she's off Vimeo. I think she's still got her Project Hamelot TV portal on YouTube. I'm very close to vanishing, but I mean, I know that Kerry's doing a lot of stuff on BitChute. and then there's Brighteon, and then there's new to YouTube, which is a lot of people are on it. On that. Where do you see other people turning up, or where do you see it going in terms of which channel do people look at, or where do they get their info from? Telegram, of course, is still there, but there's rumors that Bill Gates is going to buy it or something.
That's the problem. I mean, they had this alternate, I think it was called Parler,
Yeah.
and then they conveniently got all the people on there, probably got all their information and data, and then conveniently it disappeared. Was bought out by Apple, I believe. So
Well,
they're
it was on Amazon servers, so I mean that was a no brainer.
yeah. Well, but I mean these are the type of games that they're doing a lot of data collecting, and someone sent me some information regarding Facebook and how you can check and see how many other locations that your data is being used. I mean, my Facebook account, one of them was hijacked, and it's someone claiming to be a part of the federal government giving out grants and asking for personal information from people. And so, and then they're calling me, and they were trying to discredit my name through that. So, I mean, they're pretty nasty. There's some of the
Oh,
things
I
that they're
think this
doing.
is we are at war, and there's no love lost here. This is information death.
Yeah, they're trying. They will discredit people for because I put out a lot of information on my Facebook, and now I have a very simple account. I don't put a whole lot there. This is what they're looking for, but just to kind of be out there for the people. But I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. They're implementing so much AI everywhere.
Yeah.
I can get up, leave the house. I get certain phone calls from people
Yeah.
out of nowhere. It does feel like we're being monitored, and this is not paranoia. I mean,
As soon as I
literally, when
walk
you
into this house, there'll be a phone call because somebody knows I'm here.
yes, yes, and then I mean, people can question this all they want, but it's not a mystery that there's so many satellites, and they continue to put satellites up in the sky for what? The CCP arrangement that they're trying to make sure that they can observe, survey, and so forth. And
Right,
so,
as Dr. Robert Duncan said, they want to control everything right down to the last blade of grass.
according to Peter, he told me that their end goal is that we have to have a passport just to leave our town. They don't want us leaving our
Yeah,
town.
that's what they don't want us to move anywhere. Back
Right.
to the Middle Ages, basically.
Right. And then, of
But if you
course,
can't leave your town, you can't work. So it's not going
right.
to. I mean, and then just wipe out whole towns.
Well, people would eventually die,
Well, of
and I
course,
think
that's
that's
what
what's
they
happening.
want, don't they? They want to kill us all, but not all of us.
No, the ones that they find that are useful that or follow the rules. There's someone sent me information about an island. I think it was I don't know what the name of the island is. I have to look real quick,
Is it the
but
Caribbean?
it's the Caribbean, I think. And I guess the certain people got the shot.
Well, you
I don't
don't want
know
to
how
be
to.
anywhere near anybody who's got the shot because they're going to be
Yeah,
absolutely terrible, dangerous.
but there was going to be a volcanic activity, and the ones that were going to get help escorted out were the ones that obeyed. The
Well, there
rest, forget
already
about you.
was a volcanic eruption, and they picked people up, and you couldn't get on the boat unless you signed your rights to have the vaccine and
Yes,
also wear masks and all that. But you weren't going to be rescued from the lava unless you did that. And in Holland, the vote
right.
when you voted, you consented to
Saint
getting
Vincent.
this thing from your relatives in our close family with Maxine.
Yeah, Saint Vincent is the name of the island, and yeah, I mean, these are the type of things where like we have to be in spiritual warfare. We have to be. I mean, I think if you have abilities, you need to be exercising them now.
Yeah.
You know,
Now is the time.
right?
Now is the time.
I mean,
Now is the time.
when I see them in my space, I do whatever I need to do to take care of that. And I think All of us should do that. If you have the second sight or intuitive, psychic, seer, whatever, you should be, wanting to protect the planet. And trust me, there are those out there in the astral that are supporting us.
How do you see people doing that? What would you tell people to do in order to facilitate that?
Don't allow anything in your space. Don't let anything trick you, try to seduce you. Don't have sex with anything astrally. That's a huge giveaway of your personal power.
What do you mean having sex with somebody astrally? Surely it's a bit difficult. It's all in your mind, isn't it?
It's no, they actually have the feelings, sensations, and so forth. Yeah, that's very real. People say, well, what's real? Here, because we can feel it. It's solid or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's that space is just as real as our space. It's just that it's not as full of sensory perception. We don't actually pick up all the different. We don't always smell. We don't feel everything.
Is that because you don't think you can smell and feel, but if you do think you can
Yes.
smell and feel, you will?
Yes. Yes. It's part of the illusion. If you have a lucid dream, you wake up, you shake your head, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what happened. And then you say, oh, it's just a dream. Well, then you find out a few years later that your life just got all screwed up. And it was because of that dream that you thought wasn't real, but actually it did happen. And so something altered in your timeline, ruined your relationship, you lost your job, some bad things. And you don't really know what the source was,
Well,
and it was
how do
because of
people
this.
deal with that? I mean, there are people I know who've getting targeted and all sorts of things happening, and there is this feeling of, well, I'm being targeted, therefore I must be, you cow back. But if you become an empowered individual, I mean, a friend of mine had a real problem with her daughter's boyfriend,
Right.
and he's very parasitic, and she said 3 times, what was it? I do not consent. I deny
I do
you.
not consent. I do not agree. Yeah.
I do not agree. I rescind. I rescind. I rescind. And he just stopped. And then his personality changed. And then he became all happy slappy. He completely changed. It was amazing. And then he
Yeah.
wanted to be best buddies with her and all that. But that was only because it was doing a different, different
We don't
attack
we
mode.
don't we don't utilize our personal power, Miles. We don't utilize it.
Well,
People think that we're supposed to submit, and it starts off with, our upbringing, our early childhood, our training in our society and our world. And I'm not saying that you should be rebellious and just want to fight everybody all the time, but because of that, and because of the way things are so structured, and there's this hierarchy, and we're always looking up to these others, the elites know what their power is. They never forfeited it. We did. We forfeited our power. We thought we had to submit. So once you recognize that we're all equal, all humanity is equal, that we're all connected to a divine source, however you want to perceive it, whatever your belief system is, but we're all equal, and we all equally have a voice. We equally have a power, a purpose, and our words mean something. And when people take away from what we feel, or our words, or whatever, then we need to re-educate ourselves of what is ours and what is our own empowerment. I put together a video talking about sovereignty, and it guides people to break ties with things, to separate. I usually tell people you break ties in all dimensions, time, space, realities, past,
you would
present,
call a
future.
tie what? Cording? Decording? Is that what you would say?
Absolutely, because your entanglement with those energies sometimes can be limiting. It not can be, are limiting, and then also enables you to not align with their agendas if they're in some kind of agenda. So if some entity, I've had dreams where I signed papers. I signed something and committed to somebody, and I woke up, I'm like, what did I just do? What did I sign? I don't even know what I signed. That stuff actually does impact your life. Your soul made an agreement with something, even if you remember it or you don't. So never undermine that kind of thing that's happened in your dream space. And so I will say, I break any ties, vows, contracts that I had made with this entity in all time, space, reality, past, present, future, all parallels, alternate space, in between space, pocket realities, quantum space, wherever. I break them right now and I reclaim my sovereignty and I cut off. And I'm telling you something, Miles, that has changed my life and so many other people's lives, because immediately you feel the liberation. And some people, you actually even feel stuff coming right off of them. It's amazing. If we want to be in this
But
battle,
with decording, it's important to tie the cords off so they can't come back. So
yeah,
they can't.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's still flying around or whatever. It's down to all what you perceive.
But you can't be efficient in fighting off the entities that want to take over and create this slave system here if you are entangled with them, right? How are you going to combat that if you're a part of them?
Yeah.
So you have to break off from that, and then you become more powerful in your effectiveness. Humanity, it's time for humanity to stand up for what for the truth of why they're here. We're waiting for a savior, a Messiah, and I know some people are going to get upset about that, but I feel that we all have to become self-empowered.
Yes.
Can't just wait for one
Which
person.
which is what's happened with this whole Biden Trump thing. Biden has been chosen to take the shit and be the failure that everybody sees him, and it's a complete it's screwing our consciousness. And why would the Democrats choose any kind of a leader who's obviously so near to death or maybe died or is so
Right,
incompetent? It's because all the Biden stuff, his son, that was released to mainstream. Mainstream did release that stuff. So they're all playing this game where we all are distracted. And I'm beginning to think Trump was playing the same game, because he's all this other stuff about how he was able to bring this particular chemical that they wish, this biological RMNA material that they're pushing into us in various types of brand names.
right.
It's all part of the same game. The two sides of the same one side of the same whatever it is, that phrase.
Yeah, and I think that I said to a Democrat, I said this is a puppet regime, and they lost it. They went off. They were like, it is not. And I said, listen, I said, as long as you, I mean, I think a 10-year-old kid can figure out levels of responsibility, competency, what is required to run certain things, is people that shouldn't be even running their own household, let alone a corporation or a company. And because everyone understands, well, this is our relative, and we know that they're at that age and there's things going on, and whether it's senility or whatever, and you understand that, and you say, well, all right, they're fine, just don't let them drive.
Yeah.
you know so now
Or
what
try to
is
walk
this?
up steps to an airplane.
Yeah, I mean anyone could trip, but it's just one of the many, many, many things. There's like multiple. There were multiple before the election, and
But
they
what's
didn't.
happened here is everybody's got focused on what's going on in the States, but we have an absolute den of iniquity and corruption in this country. We're run by the most corrupt, most bought politicians at every level on both sides, and the BBC just fired or forced out a regional weather presenter here, and what she'd been seen attending some of the local marches just to sort of see what the hell's going on. And ultimately, I don't want to go into too much details, but ultimately, the BBC she could not read out on the air the stuff that she knew were the greatest load of lies. She couldn't actually allow herself to do that anymore. So she's got out. And they says, well, we've got to maintain our impartiality. There are people tearing up their TV licenses here. Everybody here's got to spend 120 quid a year or whatever the hell it is, 250 quid a year. I don't know. That's road tax or whatever. I don't know. It's it's a it's a it's money you have to pay if you want to watch anything else.
Right.
You may never watch the BBC, but also the BBC includes all the radio services. So I mean, somehow they're going to be paid for. But they are so on every level, on science, comedy, news at all levels. It's so absolutely taken over with woke and bias. It's absolutely. I mean, it's unbearable, and so many people are not watching it.
Yeah, it's kind of like force feeding. But there's
It's like those ducks, where they shove stuff down the neck to force
yeah,
feed these poor ducks.
they figured out what when the TVs came out, what was it, around the 40s or so, right? 40s, 50s, and the people had their television, how mesmerizing they were.
Yeah.
And they said, all right, this is great, let's start with all these commercials, and we'll get people to buy everything that we want. That was successful, and it just kept evolving. And then they created that white noise behind behind programming, or late at night when people would then watch TV because they couldn't get away from TV. Then they had to play it while they're sleeping. So there's this constant,
Oh, right. They kept the TV on.
Yeah.
I thought the point was that they put test tone on it, and so people would hear the test tone loud and switch it off. I don't know.
Well, in the U.S., I mean, I think they've monitored some of that. I know people who cannot go to sleep without a television on, and it affects them. It affects them because there is this. It goes deep into the subconscious. Everyone knows when you do say hypnosis,
Yeah.
subconscious is a very fragile place, because the conscious mind has an awareness of everything that you're selecting, choosing, you're reasoning things through. The subconscious mind isn't able to quite do that. It just takes in the data, doesn't filter it out a whole lot, and you can have implanted information. This is how MK Ultra and all these other programs are so efficient. They bypass the conscious mind, go right into the subconscious. And those that are doing regressions, you don't know. I think on a spiritual level, it's very important that you don't harm anybody, but it's a violation of the soul when you do things that you shouldn't do. You have to be very careful. But the media, of course, they don't care, because they're trying to harness mass group of people to follow the numbers, to walk in line, to sit and wait for information. And when Al Bielek talked about a future reality. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
if you
wonderful,
remember
Al
that.
Bielek.
And I remember listening to what he said, and I did a regression where I believe I was in that space that he talked about, because they were all sitting there with these big, huge TV screens, right? And everyone was getting their information from the TV screen. And the one thing that happened gets to your shirt.
Yeah, just get it. Might as well.
The
It
one
won't be wearing it much longer. Yeah.
the one thing that happened, it says, if you do not work, you don't have a purpose. And I heard that in my regression. If you do not work, you do not have a purpose. It was almost like a mechanical voice saying that. And that's the future of what they anticipate should happen. And that's exactly what Al Bielek said. Everyone had to work, regardless of where you're from or what you were doing. You had to have a purpose, or then, it's like you're exterminated. So we interpret what work is. Now, you and I, we work. But maybe according to their definition, this is not work. This is contrary to their,
But we're part of the
categories.
revolution. But then that's part of the whole psychology of it. I mean, the guy that I was talking to yesterday was explaining a lot of this, that they want people rioting on the streets. That's part of what they want. So when people, and this is all kicked off in Northern Ireland, people burning buses. I mean, it's not
Yes.
doing anybody any good. But clearly these are agent provocateurs, or in Belfast, agent provocateurs, to burn buses. And what the hell does that do? It just screws up the bus schedule and people's lives. And
It
nobody up
hurts
there.
the
Yeah.
common people. That's
Yeah.
right.
Common
Yeah.
people are seeing through this. It's nothing to do with helping them. people have grown up now. They can see the politics. They can see the fiasco of what's going on, and now, it's not like the naive 1960s where the only thing you ever had was the bloody BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you still have that, really. But
Yeah.
what do you want to do in the last few minutes? Because I'm going to move on.
Okay. Well,
I think if we keep it to an hour.
yeah, no, this is good. Well, I told you about the restaurant that I went to. It was called the Holy Grail. It's in New Hampshire, and I went there the evening before Easter, Easter Eve, such a thing. And there was a little it was interesting because it says Kennedy's there. It's Camelot, and we talked about Project Camelot. And I'm really big on synchronicities, and these things happen all the time. So I had no idea. I
There's
had
no
knowledge,
such thing as a
right?
coincidence. There is no such thing as a coincidence.
So here is an Irish philosophy. I don't know if people can see
Ah,
that,
it's out of focus. Maybe.
but we can maybe send it. It says, there are only two things to worry about. Either you are well or you're sick. If you are well, then there's nothing to worry about. But if you are sick, then there are two things to worry about. Either you will get well or you will die. And if you get well, there's nothing to worry about. But if you die, then there's only two things to worry about: whether or not you'll go to heaven or hell. And if you go to heaven, there's nothing to worry about. But if you go to hell, you'll be damn busy shaking hands with those many of your friends, and you won't have time to worry. So why worry? And that was the Irishman's philosophy.
That's
Is that
a
true?
good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you call circuit. Well, I don't even know. That's good. Yeah. Well, it's true. Yeah.
It's true. So why people are of fear, and the fear is more debilitating than actually the rules and the
That's it.
laws.
Absolutely.
And so if we step out of that, and I'm not saying people should go out and get arrested or anything crazy, but remember that our fear is what's holding us back, and we need to be proactive in our own personal way, what feels right for us. And just an encouragement.
Well, I have to say, having seen that video of the Canadian pastor shouting out to get out the police who turned up, who clearly knew they were not in any legal state. They just felt they could just come in and intimidate people and just clear the place out in Canada. And this Baptist minister threw them out and didn't have any polite words for them once they left the church. And they all scarpered eventually, sheepishly and cowardly, creeped away because anyway, better not say too much more on that.
Yeah,
But
the
it
people in
inspired
Canada
me,
are,
denying them permission to come in because they didn't. And they just thought they could, well, anyway, they did all. I don't want to say too much more.
yeah.
But.
You're not supposed to enter in someone else's house without permission.
Well, what are you doing in the next week or two, young lady?
Oh,
What are your
doing the work that
plans?
whatever I'm supposed to do. Every day's I wake up in the morning. I'm a seer, so I wake up in the morning. I see things. It goes throughout the day. I work with clients, help them, and put together information that I feel that people need to hear. And by the time I'm going to bed, I'm still seeing things.
Good.
So trying to help clear and do whatever has to be done on the planet. And I appreciate all the others that are doing the same.
Well, at the weekend, we decided just to take small roads and see where it took us. And it took us up wonderful places and hills and adventures and hailstorms and all that, and fun and meeting different people. It was just great, just doing something completely different that we hadn't done before. So there it is.
Yeah, well,
So it's
that's,
good night from me.
enjoying the earth is what's going to keep us energized. So that's a good idea.
Good to see you, Jessica.
It's nice to see you too.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.